Can I get a motion to reopen the public meeting?
So moves.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Jean Bowie, absent. Nicole Bourgeois, absent. Yolanda Lopez,
Yes.
Teron McKnight,
Yes.
Gerald Trueheart,
Yes.
Jeannie Weeklam,
Yes.
Sade Williams, absent. Addie Daniels Lane.
Yes.
Okay, meeting reopened. Okay.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I certainly would like to apologize to our public, and certainly thank them for their, thank you all for your patience and your eagerness to participate. Unfortunately, we had a slightly longer session than anticipated. So again, I do offer my apology about the extended wait time. At this time, I want to very quickly read over the board public commentary advisory. The Trenton Public School District welcomes the attendance and comments from all members of the public at its meetings. This public comment period is your time to be heard on any school or school district issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to the residents of the school district. Each person who signed up to comment will have 5 minutes. You'll be notified when your 5 minutes are up. You cannot yield your time to another person. When it is your turn to speak, please address all of your comments to the board president. Please conduct yourself in a respectful and courteous manner. For anyone whose comments or actions either harass, intimidate, or threaten the safety of any person, we will provide you with a warning or immediately end your comment time. Also, if you curse, use vulgar language, or make personal attacks, we'll provide you with a warning or end your comment time. Comments that adhere to these guidelines will not be interrupted. Also, we ask that members of the public not interrupt the speaker during their public comment. If you have any questions, please ask your questions during your 5-minute comment period. After the public comment period is closed, the board superintendent or designate will address your questions to the extent provided by law. Let me just say that there's some background noise that I see a comment in the chat. So if you are not speaking, please do mute yourself, which I will do in just a minute. So if you're not the speaker, please do mute yourself. All right, and again, I offer my apologies for the extended wait time, and I thank you for your patience. At this time, I'm going to move, the first person on my list is Anna Lozada. Anna Lozada? No Anna. Lynn Mithnall. No Lynn. Sandra Jimenez. No Sandra. We'll come back if they appear.
No, I think she's there, Addie. I see her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's there.
I'm sorry, missed you.
It's okay.
Ms. Jimenez, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sandy Jimenez, and I'm the third vice president of the Trenton Education Association. From some of the other times I've addressed the board, you might notice I'm without my little sidekick as it is past his bedtime tonight. With that being said, I will keep my comments short as it is very late. I am very dismayed at how the superintendent search has been conducted. Not only have none of the stakeholders been involved in the process, but who the finalists are is a complete mystery. This is the person that is to lead all of us into being successful for the future for the students we serve. So shouldn't we all be involved and at least have a say in what is being asked of them? Not only that, is past 10 at night on spring break. If you truly wanted public participation, why wasn't this advertised or held at a normal time for people to even watch online? With all due respect, it is this kind of nonsense, which is why people have lost faith in the board. This is just one example of the board not being collaborative or transparent. If you operate in complete transparency, there isn't anything people can question about the process or people's motives. When you are transparent, you gain people's trust. When the community trusts you, there is buy-in. When you have buy-in, you can begin to collaborate in a meaningful way so that we can all come together to work for the students and community that we serve. We need to all be on the same page now more than ever. Until there is transparency between the board and the community, we will not move forward as a district, which is just so sad. Thank you so much for your time and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. And again, I appreciate your patience. At this particular time, I'll move on to the next person on the list, Chantel Wooten. No Chantel. Okay, John Fort or Forte?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm speaking to you tonight as a proud teacher at Trenton Central High School and a member of the Trenton Education Association. I would like to address two things tonight. First, the district's plan to return to in-person learning, and second, the exclusion of TEA from the current superintendent search. I want to start by expressing that the vast majority of my students who I polled and spoke to about their views, believe that we should wait until September before we return to in-person learning. I shared their words on this subject at the last board meeting. We're roughly 11 days away from from teachers returning to the building. Still, we have not had any answers to any questions in regards to the reopening. I want to read off a list of questions that high school teachers provided to their administration and still have not received any answers on. Number one, what are the plans for closing or resuming virtual instruction if and when there is a COVID case in the building? How will parents and students be notified in a timely fashion if this happens? Number two, will 10th graders have an orientation since most of them have never been in the building before? Number three, this is what one teacher expressed. I will have strict sanitation for all equipment that is assigned to my returning students. My classroom is a specialty class and we adhere to proper sanitation codes and inventory. I would request not sharing this classroom and the supplies and equipment to safeguard the supplies and equipment. Number four, what are the benefits of reopening in May versus September? Can't that short time period be devoted to developing a solid plan to reopening in September? Number five, have parents been informed that their child may not have the same teacher for the end of the school year if their teacher has a 504 plan? Number six, where will teachers be expected to go while their classroom is being used by a floating teacher? It is not safe for teachers to gather in teacher lounges, so what will be made available that will allow us to socially distance? Number seven, what is the point of making teachers stay in the entire day when we could fulfill our duties virtually in the afternoon? The afternoon should be used for the custodians to begin the daily deep cleaning that should be taking place. Number eight, how will student movement throughout the hallways be monitored? Number nine, how will we have any quality time left for instruction when we will have to spend days teaching procedures and routines like we usually do at the beginning of the school year? I want to reiterate that last point because I think there's a misnomer that high school teachers don't spend a lot of time teaching procedures and routines. I think every good high school teacher knows they spend at least a week teaching routines and procedures. That's going to result in lost instruction time. I want to stress the importance now of involving the Trenton Education Association in the superintendent search. Given the lack of a coherent reopening plan, many students and staff are anxious and distrustful of district administration's choices and decisions. If the board wants to rebuild that trust and truly work together with staff members, don't you think it would be wise to involve TEA in the superintendent search? As we wait for the results of the Amazon Union Drive in Bessemer, Alabama, it gives us a chance to reflect on why allowing unions to participate in decision-making is so important. The Amazon Unionization Drive is a historical event because it represents economic justice and racial justice for a majority of Black workers who've been mistreated and ignored by management. My point is that unions exist to provide workplace democracy. Places of employment should not be dictatorships that make decisions unilaterally. I hope the board will honor the principle of workplace democracy and create a collaborative process that includes all stakeholders to select Trenton's next superintendent. I want to conclude by saying that our students and staff have been through enough hardships and trauma this year. I hope the board will make the right decisions regarding the plan to reopen schools and the superintendent search. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move to our next participant, Michelle Marazzo. No, Michelle. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one, Dr. John Ginden.
Addie Lynn came back also. We called him Lynn.
Okay, okay, all right. So Michelle Marazzo is not here. Dr. John Ginden, I don't see him. And so we will go to Lynn Mitnall. So Mr. Mitnall, you may unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I was calling from my phone.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. Hi, my name is Len Mitnall, and I've been a teacher at Trenton Public Schools for over 30 years. I would like to say that I'm disappointed that this Board of Education has made no real effort to communicate to the parents, teachers, staff, community, and stakeholders about tonight's and yesterday's meeting. For something as important as the superintendent search, there should have been many, many attempts to reach out to all stakeholders. Is this highlighted on the Trenton Public School website? No, only a tiny link for an April 8th, 2021 board meeting. Is it on the Trenton Public School Facebook page? Was it mentioned on the Trenton Board of Education weekly TV radio broadcast? Were robocalls sent to staff members and parents? Was a single simple email sent out? Were flyers posted in and around the community? Were local community leaders notified? Were union leaders advised of tonight's meeting? Were the city mayor and the city council members consulted? I must say the answer to all these questions is a resounding no. My only rationale for such secrecy is the board is stating it wants transparency, community input and involvement, parental and union support, but in reality, the board wants to make this decision on its own without any other sources of input and do it behind closed doors and in secret. Although the board says it is taking no formal action, how can it be that after 2 nights of clandestine meetings, the public is still unaware of how many candidates are being interviewed? How can it be that we are still unaware of these candidates' qualifications? How can it be that we don't even have the names of the candidates? This current search for a superintendent is flawed, unethical, erroneous, and improperly prepared. I would suggest to the board to restart this search with a sincere effort to involve all stakeholders. Now, although it is too late to undo this egregious damage that has been committed, let's learn from our past errors and promise to do better in the future. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to your response to this serious and life-changing task at hand. We, the Trenton Public School community, all deserve much better. Thank you and good night.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mitnall. Okay, Dr. Gendon, Nicole Backlund.
Good evening, board members, and to those in the community that are tuning in virtually. My name is Nicole Backlund, and I've been teaching art in the district since 2009, and I thank you for giving me time to speak this evening. It is no lie and no secret that people are eager for life to return to normal before COVID-19 has thrown us all into the world where we rely on Zoom and Google Meets for everything. It is no lie and no secret that teachers miss being face-to-face with their students. Students miss seeing their classmates on a daily basis, and everyone misses being able to leave their house without doing the masked hand sanitizer double check. However, we should not let that eagerness be what makes the decision to reopen the schools. We should not let pressure from Governor Murphy be what makes the decision to reopen the schools. We should also not move forward to reopen schools when there are so many holes, flaws, and unanswered questions remaining and so little time to answer them. Schools closed over a year ago, and the current plan is to bring students back in just under a month. In just 1 month, I truly hope the following questions will be given serious thought, consideration, and clear answers can be communicated so staff and students can be kept safe, even though the science and data are revealing terrifying stories about schools reopening too eagerly. Are parents fully aware that students are coming in for a half day of instruction? The main argument I hear for returning is social interaction, but between being seated behind plexiglass at a Chromebook, social distancing in the hallways, and leaving early to log back in virtually, what is a safe social interaction truly going to look like? And when is it going to be happening during the day? With the half day of instruction, has anyone considered how far some of the students have to walk home and log back in for their afternoon virtual meetings? Let's also remember the walking time is when they're supposed to be eating their lunch. What is the plan for busing, and when will that be communicated so the parents can make arrangements for their babies? What happens if a student from cohort A comes to school on the wrong day and vice versa? If a teacher has an approved 504, who will be supervising the students in their classes that have decided to return for in-person learning? Have quality substitutes been secured? Will they be trained on how to monitor the students in person and virtually using Google Classroom to not disrupt student learning? Is the district going to purchase equipment for teachers to handle teaching students in person and virtually the way other districts have? And will this equipment be purchased, installed, and ready for when teachers and students return in just under a month? When are teachers going to receive quality training on how to deliver instruction to students virtually and to the students in person? Of course, the last question, what is the true value of bringing the students back face-to-face when there are clearly so many risks? Teachers are constantly planning, thinking ahead, and preparing for unknown obstacles that might pop up during our lessons and during the school day. We are thankful for the PPE that has been purchased, the plexiglass that has been installed, and the other precautions that have been taken. But the current plan that is being communicated does not prepare for any unknown obstacles. And for anyone that has ever worked in a school, when have we ever experienced a day where the students did not surprise us with something new and different? The teachers, students, and community all deserve to be safe during these times. COVID-19 is not going away overnight. It is mutating regularly and bringing in new variants that scientists are still learning about. Why put people at risk? Why interrupt student learning now when we already have a routine in place that works, that keeps everyone safe, and keeps our students learning? Thank you for your time and for allowing me to speak this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Backlund. The next person on my list is Marlena Ventura.
Good evening, board members, community, and community members who are watching. I'd like to thank you for letting me have this opportunity again to talk on a topic that I am passionate about, my vocation and my students. I hear a lot about how kids need to come back for both social emotional health and their academic learning. I've talked a lot about their academic learning, but tonight I want to talk about their social emotional health. And I would like to make my comments more personal so you understand how serious I find the ill thought out reopening plan is. This year's been hard on both adults and students. My students and all students missed out on amazing lessons and projects because they didn't translate to online learning. We all missed out on birthdays and celebrations and successes. For me, it was an extremely difficult year. Some of you know, but many do not, I suffer from severe anxiety. And I was diagnosed about 10 years ago and have worked very hard to manage it, but this year brought it back with a vengeance. I've had many anxious days and nights, especially in July and August, worrying about the start of school. And it wasn't until you decided to do the right thing and start the school year virtually did my anxiety lessen and I get some sleep. What also helped me even more was being able to teach virtually from my classroom. It gave me a routine that my anxiety required. And when we had to move back to teaching remotely from home, I understood because it was the best thing for my students and my coworkers. But it was hard for me. There were many days on my prep, I curled up on my bed and I cried because my anxiety was at its worst. The pattern of anxious days and sleepless nights started again in January and subsided again when I heard about reopening May 3rd. And this excited me. I would get my students and the much needed routine I needed back. And the leaders of the district would have plenty of time to work out a safe reopening plan. However, as we got closer, the safe reopening plan was nowhere in sight. Now let's talk about the students. They've been home with their parents for over 365 days straight. Their parents were there to help them with school when I could not because I was on the computer and not with them in the room. Their parents celebrated their successes and their birthdays, and home was and is their world. Some students even excelled online learning. Students were safe and are safe. They didn't have to face the struggles of school without a loved one. And as you know, I teach kindergarten, and I need to ask this question. When was the last time you were in a kindergarten classroom on the first day of school, first week of school, or even first month? If you haven't been there recently, you might not remember that the young children suffer from separation anxiety, and there are many tears. Sometimes these tears last for a few minutes, but it can be a few days, weeks, and for some, it's the whole year. The difference between a normal year and this year is that in a normal year, students come to school 5 days a week. Yes, 5 for almost 7 hours. This hybrid plan will not have consistency. Students will come to school 2 days a week for a little more than 4 hours a day, and then be at home for 5 days. On this plan, this on and off pattern does not provide enough consistency for students to work through that separation anxiety. There won't be a recess, free play, or center time for students to work out their nerves or interact with each other or create new friendships. Every week, just as the students start getting used to in-school routines, they'll go back to virtual routines. It'll be like putting a Band-Aid on a cut, then ripping it off and putting a new Band-Aid on and ripping off again and again and again for 6 weeks. As I've said throughout my comments, I am excited and I want to go back to the classroom with my students. It helps my well-being. However, the plan, the way it is now, will not be in the best interest of my students. I would rather sacrifice my social emotional health than to support a plan that would harm my students both socially, emotionally, academically, and physically. Again, I am going to ask the board, why are we opening now? Are we doing it for the good of the children, or are we doing it for those political optics? Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Ventura. All right, and so we're going to move now to Ms. Janice Williams.
Good evening, and I want to thank my colleagues. I think they have expressed some valid points that I hope that the board will truly take into consideration. What is the value versus the risk? What are the rewards? But I want to talk about both areas tonight. But first, I want to go back to last night and this night also. I hope as you interview your candidates, if you had a full board, and I see that some of those board members are now missing, it is disrespectful to the public for them not to participate in this public participation session. Perhaps it was too late for them. It is also late for us. But if you considered the public, then you would have put us at the beginning and then interviewed after the public session had completed itself. It is disrespectful. They are there to serve the public and be there and for the public. And I find it very disrespectful for those members who decided not to take the time to want to hear what the public has to say. And that's why they're seated in those seats. Now, I also want to go back to some comments that Board President Addy made on yesterday regarding her feeling that the board had done enough in terms of involving the public in the selection of the superintendent by providing us with a survey and opportunities to give questions out of town hall that was limited in the attendance, if you took note of that. And I want to also remind Addy, if she was currently in TEA or was a member of TASA, those efforts wouldn't have been enough to satisfy either TASA or TEA. But we remember quite clearly what you said several months ago, Addy. You said, I once was a teacher, a vice principal, and a principal, but now I'm on the other side. I'm management. That's obvious now that you are management. Now, let me also say that I support you in supporting your vice president in her assignment as a novice person assigned to the task of overseeing the superintendent search. You said that she was assigned to that position because she was an attorney. Well, we all have titles and positions. We have 2 attorneys that we employ full-time with salary that could have done the same search if you were looking for an attorney. When I look at her bio, it doesn't say that she acts in the capacity of an attorney. But now let's go back down memory lane. Let's go back to 2016, when current board members Bowie, Trueheart, and Yolanda sat on the board when we were engaged in a superintendent search. And we came up with Sergio Paz and Margarita Wingate, who had been in Albany, Patterson, Wisconsin, all sitting home on couches. And when we had the round table and we flushed them out through their credentials, they were no longer viable candidates. Ms. Weingart said she would never, ever send her child to Trenton Public Schools. That was flushed out when we had the round table of candidates. Each candidate did a round table with unions and community people so they could engage in a real live conversation, straight up, front up, and we flushed those things out. The board does not have the tools that we have as an association in flushing out these candidates. You don't have what we have available to us to do the work, to do the digging, to do the research, to find out the flaws of these candidates. We are connected with NJA, IDEA, and other venues that can flush these candidates out if we know the names of them. Had we not flushed out in 2016, we would have been saddled with incompetent people. Now let's fast forward. When you changed the rules for Nelson Rabone, when it should have been an interim, you changed the rules and you made it active because you were trying to place him in the seat. And then you had to let him go because he sold knockoff t-shirts. Okay, because you didn't do your homework when he was only from a red schoolhouse, 5 schools. You didn't do your homework. He came down here and ripped off our parents and students with knockoff t-shirts, and he had to be fired. But yet you wanted him to be the superintendent of schools, and you allowed him to be an acting instead of an interim so he could apply for the job for permanency. As Gene Bowie said, he put his whole trust in that man. Okay, well, we did. And look what he did to us. And then let's go talk about Fred McDowell. He was the default candidate. The top 3 candidates didn't want the position because they didn't feel that they needed to compete against someone with less credentials as a Fred McDowell. So you gave Fred McDowell the job by default. Okay, and look what happened to him. He got rid of early childhood. He got rid of the night school for adult students, that let them go to Mercer County, let them pay. Now, where was he? He was also sent home sitting on the couch until Collinswood picked him up. But now let's talk about returning in person. We, as an association, Trenton Education Association, sent you this letter, and I'm just going to reinforce it. The Trenton Education Association is informing you that on April 19th, all TEA members will continue teaching remotely from home safely instead of reporting to their respective school buildings. We are taking the above action for these reasons in case you failed to read it in your email. We are taking these actions for the above reasons. The district made a unilateral decision for teachers to teach virtually while also teaching to students in the classroom without any teacher training, video equipment, adequate compensation, and despite previously failed trial runs of synchronous teaching. It was an epic failure. Asher Central Leadership Team. Number 2, the district is adding unnecessary changes to returning to in-person instruction, putting at risk and exposing us to COVID-19 as New Jersey has become the leading state for rising cases of COVID-19. 3, due to the rising numbers statewide and new variants of COVID-19 virus present in Mercer County and in the Trenton community, we need to take extra precautions to protect staff, members, family, and students. The Trenton Public School
excuse me, Janice, you have a minute left.
I will. This is it. Trenton Public School teachers have been and are committed to safely educating all students throughout this pandemic. So we want this board to stay informed, keep us safe, and stay tuned. Again, you have this letter. The Trenton Education Association is informing you that on April 19th, we will continue to teach remotely from home safely.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I'm going to move to our final speaker, and then I'll go back over the list just to make sure no one has shown up after I call their name. So the last person on the list for tonight is Ms. Talithia Duncan.
Good evening once again, and
Good
I
evening.
reiterate everything that my colleagues have said in regards to the superintendent search. Your comments last night, Board President Lane, on how unions were included. Let me be clear, the town halls were in reference to the strategic plan that New Jersey school boards helped us create for the 5 years. That was not really town halls for input on a superintendent. Previously, as Janice stated, we were invited to a town hall round robin, go around the table and meet the candidates. Like I said last night, we were told there were 27 candidates. At the last meeting, Tehran announced that it was narrowed down to 9. I received some information that it may have been 4. We don't know who the 4 people are. We assume that one of the 4 is Mr. Yano, but that has not either been confirmed or denied. So I want us to be very clear that no, the unions were not engaged in a meaningful way. You made up a survey that I talked about on a couple meetings, that the questions would not get you what you needed to get the true feelings of the union leadership here in Trenton. And because Janice spoke so eloquently about how when you did not include union heads, how you epically failed, I won't belabor the point. But I will tell you that tonight I am very, very in an emotional state. I am in an emotional state because although I do like and have worked under Mr. Yano in my previous position, although I am very happy that Governor Murphy provided a full pension payment in his budget plan, I am deeply saddened that people who are looking for political movement and or social and job movement to obtain permanent positions or another round of elections as the governor are putting our people at risk. When COVID first started over a year ago, a very close friend and colleague of mine, who is also a Trenton Public School employee, lost his mother to COVID in the very beginning. Not shortly after that, my former 8th grade student at PJ Hill lost her mother to COVID. Not shortly after that, my ex-mother-in-law was in the hospital with COVID and double pneumonia, and we didn't think she would make it. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, my mother, who birthed me, was hospitalized due to COVID. Today, my childhood friend called me driving up the highway from North Carolina to say, help me, please. My mom died from COVID. When my husband got home from work today, he says, babe, I had to take a body to the morgue, and it was my childhood friend's mother. So for you all to sit here and pretend that this is not a deadly disease that affects Black and brown people way differently than other people makes me literally sick to my stomach. It is unconscionable that you can sit here and say that you don't care that we are in a red zone. We are steaming forward ahead to bring these people back when we know we don't have the resources, we don't have the protocols or procedures to do the right thing by our students, parents, community, and staff members. I don't know how you can sleep at night. I don't know how you can go in your houses of worship to say you love the most high and living God when you are not looking at the facts and the science and the data. And I am appalled, and you need to be ashamed of yourself, and you might need to rethink your purpose of being on this Board of Education. I will not tell my members to put themselves in harm's way, nor their families, their children, nor the community members here in Trenton, because you are scared to do the correct thing and you want to play political ping frickin' pong. Do the right thing. Have a one-on-one with whoever you believe your maker is, and stop playing with the lives of my members as well as the members of the Trenton community. Have a good night.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Duncan, for your comments. At this point, I'm going to go back over our list just to see if there anyone actually has showed up that actually did not get an opportunity to speak. First person I called was Anna Lozada. I don't see her here. Chantel Wooten, Michelle Marazzo, and Dr. John Gendon. Okay, that being said, I see no one else. And so this actually closes our public participation section. And so again, we want to express our thanks to the public for their participation and their patience. Certainly this has been a long evening, but again, sometimes these unfortunate things are necessary. So we've heard your concerns, and of course, we will address them accordingly. At this particular time, is there anyone who has any comment, anything they'd like to share at this particular time? So with that being said, I will just simply say this, that we are, in fact, and superintendent will be looking at the science. The science is very important, as well as preparedness and making sure that staff and students are all safe in terms of whatever the plans are. And the plans right now are to reopen as of May 3rd. But again, the science will certainly be taken into consideration. And certainly, again, that is a consideration for all. We know that this is a very trying situation for lots of families, and we certainly are aware of that and certainly do take that into consideration. But we also have to consider our students and their needs as well. So that being said, at this point, if there's nothing else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Roll call, Jean Bowie, absent. Nicole Bourgeois, absent. Yolanda Lopez,
Yes.
Teron McKnight,
Yes.
Gerald Trueheart,
Yes.
Jeannie Weakland,
Yes.
Sade Williams, absent. Addie Daniels Lane.
Yes.
Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you, Jane.